Ladies and gentlemen, what is up? It's your boy Adam Steele. No, I never talk like that. Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hiya. Welcome back to the Hot Bowl Podcast. I'm joined this week by my good friend and special guest, Mr. John Browne. Hello,
Mr. Steele.
I've not seen you since yesterday. How are you?
Yeah, doing all right. I've been you're fully aware. I'm just as you can see by all these things. I'm just in this guitar tracking hell that doesn't seem to want to end.
Yes. So for those who don't know, John is the guitar player in Monuments. And I think, would it be fair to say that you're the main songwriter in Monuments as well?
Yeah, I'd
if
say
not at least one of.
Yeah, I'd say now it's probably more of a collaborative effort than it was previously. The last album and this album, yeah, definitely more involvement from others, but obviously guitar parts are my thing.
Yes.
I just let Mike do what he wants on drums now.
Oh, Mike Mallion's so good.
I mean, it sounds great. There's the occasional time when it's like you've subdivided this time signature into something that no one except you understands.
Yeah.
But there's one part of the album, and you know which part I'm talking about because I've shown you it. And it's actually what I was tracking yesterday. I didn't know what the fuck was going on. Excuse my language.
Oh, we swear on this podcast. It's fine.
Oh, do we? All right,
okay.
And, but it sounds cool. So it's a case of, just usually pretty good ideas, And, it's good to have a different set of ears on it too.
I'm really looking forward to this album coming out now. For anyone, just again, to fill anybody in, currently John is tracking for the Monuments album number 4 for anyone who is not aware already that that's what's happening. And so I was there for the tracking yesterday of one of the new songs, and there is a bit where you're going oh, this is so cool, but oh, my brain.
Yes.
and I'm not the one having to record it.
Yeah, so I got to that part the day before yesterday when I just could not for the life of me play it. It was the end of the day because it's one of the last riffs of the song.
Yeah.
And just sometimes you just need time away. If it's not working that day, just go away. And that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
But it's a really fun part. Now I've tracked it, I listened to it, and it's like, yeah, okay, that's pretty sick. Good job, Mike. And even for Mike, actually, I remember him so he recorded the drums upstairs at home studio.
Yes.
And I remember even that part, he had to sit down and work it all out as well. And Mike's really good at just on the fly, just changing the time of anything.
Yeah.
It's just like his arms and his legs are totally independent from each other. And I don't know how he does it because my brain would just implode on itself, with doing something like that. But even that part, he had to sit down and work it out and then,
to smash it out in 3 takes because it's Malian. Yeah.
I think it was probably more like 50, that one.
It sounds like it's one of those bits. And again, everybody will see that when it comes out. But I mean, that's quite interesting to me because I know how you guys have kind of developed the album, which is quite unusual from a lot of people. Without going into huge amounts of detail, I think it's fair to say at this point, everything on the album has pretty much been decided on. So everything's and now it's the finishing process of.
There's a couple of parts that are still up in the air, and it's the Mick Gordon parts. I literally said to him, I will delete anything that you think I need to delete.
Right.
In terms of like if there's like a lead guitar part or a clean guitar part that interferes with something that he thinks would work better. And so we're still in the process of doing that. So who knows, all my guitars that I'm doing currently might just get deleted, and I am completely okay with that.
That's awesome. Again, for anyone who doesn't know Mick Gordon, the guy who made the Doom soundtrack for the 2016 Doom and Doom Eternal as well, is one of the legends of kind of synth and metal right now. And he's been gracious enough that he's involved in the Monuments 4 record, which is amazing.
I mean, we actually asked him to do the last record, and he initially agreed, and then Doom Eternal swiped him from us.
Yeah.
I mean, you would. I mean,
Yeah.
AAA title, you know. And it's, you know, great soundtrack. I mean, that's actually what prompted me to actually get in touch with Mick, was when the original 2016 remake of Doom came out. The soundtrack is just absolutely mind-blowingly good. In a completely unique way. Like what he did to the title track of the original Doom, the E1M1 or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
I never
yeah,
remember the title of it. On a 9-string, it just encapsulated what I remember from the original Doom, just way sludgier and way dirtier.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but
So yeah,
no, it's great to have him involved in the record. He's been great. He's just been sending me videos of like little parts here and there. Like the one he sent me yesterday, he just like it's just him playing on a piano
right.
track, and it's awesome to just be able to see someone else get involved in that capacity. So that's never really happened before outside of our, you know, the band.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's cool.
I think what's been interesting to me watching the development of this album is, you know, some bands, they all get in the room and they bash heads together till it's done. Some bands do the complete opposite and work entirely remotely. And a lot of this album had to be remote, of course, because Andy he lives in the US. Mick, who's involved, is in Australia. But you and Mike, particularly, I mean, you spent quite a lot of time either in the same room or in the next room from each other, collaborating with. Malian put a video up on his channel where he had the entire kit mic'd in the very next room from where you are now, right?
Yeah, and he would send me a stereo feed, so he would mix his own drums on his Antelope interface with all the plugins. So I would just get a stereo track of really nicely mixed drums to jam along to, and we did that quite a lot in the pre-production stage of the album. So that was like, I want to say it was about 2 or 3 months ago we did that. And what was good about that is, you know, there's so far that you can get with programmed drums, but a lot of the intent of what those drums are doing changes when you put a drummer behind the kit. It becomes more human, and that human element can change what you feel about a song. Whether it, well, most of the time it enhances it, but there might have been a part where I thought we should maybe change this so it makes it a little bit more fluid, a little bit more liquid. Particularly going between riffs and stuff like that. It just meant we could jam it like an actual band, which is something that we've never really been able to do, you know, being that we now live so far apart from each other, you know.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, because were you largely, you and Mike, throwing demos between, well, remotely, you and the rest of the band first, then you did that bit?
Exactly, yeah. So, you know, the initial inception, there's been time, like, for example, there's one song on the record that we actually wrote when Mike was here. And I had a couple of riffs that we thought deserved a song. And then we started writing for that over, funnily enough, just 2 days. And those riffs didn't actually end up in the song. And we ended up writing a whole new song that is ended up being the opener of the album, actually.
Right.
I'm gonna, you know which one it is. Knock Tits.
Yeah. Working title, of course.
Yeah, working title. Yeah, I mean, it means something. I'm not going to say what it is, but yeah, I mean, that happens. That happens sometimes. Like, there's been on previous records, me and Mike have just jammed in a room and created riffs, but like, there's the band Archspire with Dean Lamb, and they write entirely in a room together, which I can't quite fathom because of the complexity of their music. And I think that once you get to a certain level of complex, it starts getting more difficult to write in a room together.
I always think that when it is that complex, you just want to punch each other after a couple of days. Just be like, ah!
Yeah, imagine trying to work that out in a room while you're all stupidly loud.
Absolutely mental, isn't it? But I think it's really good that you've managed to find kind of a hybrid with having at least some face-to-face time. And I'm imagining that you've been like Skype calling, Zoom calling Andy and Mick as well. It's not just like email me a song when it's done. It's properly collaborative.
Yeah. So with Mick, I've been sending him, like, because my knowledge, like, I understand but because my guitar's tuned weird, I have to sit there and work out all the individual notes. So when there's some of these dirty chords that that are being played, I don't really know what they are. Like, I can work it out and tell you what they are, but I have to do that for Mick, because obviously a distorted guitar, he can work out so much of it, but then there's certain elements that maybe he hasn't interpreted right, and he'll ask, hey, what have you done here? And I'll just send him, like, there's been a couple of times where the only thing I've got in my house is like this broken acoustic, and I'll just send him a video of playing this broken acoustic. And obviously my guitar's tuned, he doesn't quite understand it. So then I just, sort of explain it with like saying, oh, this is the seventh of it, or.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, but that's kind of what we've been doing. And same with the back and forwards between Mike and Andy, like, we've been working just together, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, funnily enough, we've been talking about Mike and Andy and Mick. We've not really mentioned Swanee yet, have we?
So let's talk about Swanee. So if you saw the videos of the last time we were in the studio, his reaction was completely lit. I know people probably found it funny, but Swanee really hates recording in the studio. Previous Swanee's been really involved in the layouts of and structures of songs.
Yeah.
And he just does not like being in the studio. To put it bluntly, like, we've always he's always done the parts where it's like bass player parts where, as yesterday you saw, Adam, in the video I posted on Instagram, I fumbled my way through that slap bit.
Slapping it like you're angry and telling off a child or something.
Yeah,
funny.
So obviously, like, when we were writing this album, a lot of this stuff, like the slap bits, have only come about as I've come to the final bit. Kind of spent a little bit of extra time just developing that technique, just because Swanee's not here in the studio to do it. And it's fair enough. Some people just don't like being in the recording studio, the repetition of it, the stress of it. Even though you can play it over and over again, some people just don't like that. And Swanee is one of those people that doesn't like that.
Yeah, that's completely fair. I think something that's interesting to me musically as well is that the way that you guys in Monuments have always recorded, I think, is that you play a lot of the bass parts in a very similar way to the way the guitar parts are played.
It's very stylistically of this style.
Yeah, which means that whoever has written the guitar part is naturally going to be able to play the bass part without an hour of teaching someone how to do it.
Exactly. And also, like, when it comes to the guitars, the way that we've always done it is if the person that plays the riff the better, or who wrote it generally, is the one that tracks it.
Yeah.
Because it's the micro nuances between everyone's playing that makes a huge difference when you're in the microscope of recording instruments. I mean, some bands you can get away with it, especially when it's more free, I would say, than polyrhythmic metal.
Yes.
Like, everyone, especially in metal, everyone wants to hear everything slam at the same time.
Yeah.
And even just the way that someone mutes, or the way that someone picks a string, and if you have that at the sides of the track, and then you've got a bass player, that's three completely different kind of sounds.
Yeah.
That, as I say, in certain situations, that's what you want. But if you want to sound like a machine, that probably isn't the route to go. So the way that we've always read is bass part gets by the person who tracks the riff, and then if there's a bass part, Swanee, come on.
Yeah.
It's
interesting to me that it is a stylistic thing. Like, take a band like, I don't know, Red Hot Chili Peppers, where the bass and guitar completely play different things off of each other. For them, that makes perfect sense, and you would never have, say, John Frusciante playing the same part on bass. But for a lot of the Monument stuff, you're absolutely right. It's like a brick wall. It's just pow. And it
stylistically, Sugar, and a lot of, like, even if you listen to bands like Gojira, it's kind of doing that thing as well. Or even Machine Head, you can even see that there's a lot of repetition on the bass compared to the guitars.
Yeah.
Nu metal, you can see it in a lot of styles of music, and I just think it would work better. Otherwise, you're just going to have an edit nightmare
Oh
when
god,
it comes to it.
absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, speaking
but
of bass, that's a rather fancy looking bass you've got just behind you in shot there. Whose is that?
yeah, that's yours.
Yeah.
Move this out of the way, I can see it.
Yeah, for anyone who can't quite see because it's out of focus behind you, that's the bass that you usually see on my channel. Yeah.
Yeah, that's your jazz bass. It actually sounds great, that bass. Thank you very much for letting me borrow it for the album. Obviously, the
Anytime.
5-string stuff I'm covered.
Yeah. It's funny, I brought a couple of basses over because you've already got a mayonnaise that's called the Hulk, which has a huge sound. But
It does.
We were just looking at variation, weren't we? And just what's different. And it turns out that like that jazz bass, when you play it, it sounds nothing like how it does when I play the same instrument with the same settings. It's fascinating.
It is bizarre how like different. I mean, if you go to your mate's house and play through his rig,
Yeah.
you will sound completely, or her, you will sound completely different to them than they do.
Yeah.
And it's pretty apparent. The the longer you've been playing the instrument, you notice that sort of stuff more.
Yes.
I just used to think, why does this feel and sound like shit? That's the only real thing that I do. I know it's like how hard you pick obviously affects how the gain structure is in the amp. So one guy has less gain than you normally would, then it's going to be, if you don't hit those strings hard, it's never going to sound as saturated or the same. Yeah. And the same goes for bass as well, like how hard you hit with your foot or how hard you slap or how hard you pick with a pick, even where the pick is placed in that massive space that you have, it makes all the difference. So yeah, that's why.
It's the funniest thing, isn't it? Like, as a personal example between the two of us, yeah, you were playing that bass yesterday and I picked it up and played it because you were saying that I'm not getting a certain sound out of it, and I played it instantly. Just it was a different thing. It was bizarre.
But that you were talking about the quilted maple one, right?
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that one to me, it sounds great, but it doesn't have that. The reason I like the J bass so much is it clanks.
Yeah,
that's the only way I can really explain it. It like the mid range has this like peak somewhere in the upper mids that really clanks through when I hit it with a pick, and it's really noticeable. The notes there as well. So it's like a really attacking bass sound.
Yeah,
the Mayonnaise doesn't have that. The Mayonnaise is more in the lines of something like a Warwick.
Yeah, that low mid angry girth thing. Yeah.
Girth of it, yeah. But even I've been keeping the settings the same on the bass amp, the plasma, the DI, and everything, and it's amazing how different those three basses sound, even when it's the same person playing it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, the other old example is the G3 tour when you've got like Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, and someone like Petrucci. They always tell the same story, which is that they'll warm up and rehearse, and just for fun, they'll try each other's rigs out. Yep. And it always just sounds like that guitarist, no matter which rig they plug into.
It's 90% the hands.
Yeah.
Like, if you think about it, the amp's just amplifying what you're doing. Like, yes, it does affect the tone for sure. I mean, you can definitely hear when you go between a dual rectifier and a 5150. It's very, very apparent how different they are as amps. But once you get your thing down as a human being, then you're gonna have the essence of that no matter what you play through.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of amps, that's probably a good point to talk about this topic because all the gear nerds will love it. 5150 is a good starting point because it's not usually what I would consider your kind of amp, except it's become the core album tone, hasn't it?
I really dislike that amp. I can't put into words how much I have hated it in the past, but for some reason, the last since I bought that secondhand one that you came with me to get, and for some reason, something clicked with that one. It didn't feel as lazy. I know that's a really difficult way to describe an amp, but it always felt slow to me. It wasn't immediate when you picked. It was like, it's almost like going into an interface and having that slight latency. It kind of reacted slow.
Yeah.
the only way I can describe, I guess, almost like spongy versus bold on the dual rectifier, where
Yeah.
it's not quite as immediate and as tight. I always had that feeling from a 5150, but the one that I got didn't have that.
Yeah, it's bizarre. It was like, it was a little bit more immediate. I mean, the other thing that we noticed is that one of my favorite things to do when I'm in your studio is you just play and I'll start pressing and tweaking things.
Yeah.
Obviously not in the middle of an album recording, but
Yeah, don't do that.
Nope. but usually that's something that I like to do. It's tone hunting. And most people use the 5150 on the red channel, which I think has 5 or 6 stages of gain, which is so much.
Squish.
And we just weren't feeling
it. Lazy.
Yeah. So we tried it on the green channel on crunch mode, and suddenly, just like, that's the thing. That's it.
Yeah, the green channel has always been all right on the PV 5150s for sure. Like, I remember I've gone through a few EVH 5150s too. In fact, I've actually had 3 of them. At different points: the 50 watt 6L6, the Stealth, the original one, and also I bought it was an Ivory 5150 6L6 as well. And every single time, I find that the gain control on channels 2 and 3 is literally at the point where it turns the amp on. Because when you turn the gain all the way down, you don't get any signal.
Yeah.
It literally, the moment it switches on, and there's still too much fucking gain on that amp. But I in fact, actually, when we toured with Carnival, I actually used the 50 watt head on that tour and had severe feedback problems with it. And it did sound pretty good, like that moment when the gain turns on the second channel.
Yeah.
But it was still slightly too much gain for me. And I'd probably have to put like 1287s in it as opposed to 12AX7s.
Yeah.
That's the only way around it. I could think. I just need I mean, I get it. Like, John Petrucci runs his gain on full on his JP2C. And I don't understand it.
But to be fair, that is on a Mark series. A Mark series has a lot lower in total gain, I think.
Oh, but when he puts shred mode on that amp and have the gain on full, it's a lot of gain.
Yeah, sure, it's a lot of gain, but it's a different staging, isn't it? I mean, talking to the Mark series, not only have you got my Mark IV up there, which is just off camera, but you've just released a video on the Synergy.
Just the green light just here.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, that's out of shot. No, you can see it.
You can see the green light. So that's the Synergy preamp with the 2CP.
That's the one,
M2CP. And they're surprisingly similar to each other.
It's actually scary how close it was.
Yeah. And
in terms of feel as well.
Yeah. But it's really interesting how Stephen Fryett's taken the Mark design and really distilled it down and got that out. Yeah. But because Stephen has his own, he definitely has his own sound. Like when you actually listen to a Fryette, and you've been here because I've had 2 of them now. Yeah.
Not including the modules in the Synergy system, and Stephen has his own unique sound. It's very unique. It's very, very him. Yeah. And when I said to him that, because I had a conversation with him a few months ago. In fact, it's probably more like a year ago now. Where's time going? But I remember him saying like he didn't know what I meant when I said that the Fryette tone was quite dry. Yeah. And I kind of had to explain it to him, and I think he saw it as, it's just tight.
Yeah.
As opposed to dry, but if you play through a Fryette, if you make one mistake, it's noticeable immediately. Yeah. Whereas the Mark series, the 2C Plus, there's a little bit more forgiveness in it.
Yeah, there's so much more saturation in that mid-range. Yeah, you can get away with a lot.
Get away with murder.
Yeah. You can get away with having the gain on full and a booster in front, a la John Petrucci.
Yep.
But but that and that Road King that's behind you, they are just kind of being used as seasoning on the album, aren't they? Just like features and little interesting bits.
So there's quite a few 6-string songs on the album, and to get around, because obviously sometimes you kind of want that sort of low girth that's kind of I guess the timbre of a 7-string is it. For me, it's never really been about tuning lower. It's been about the it kind of sounds in the timbre, and the difference between a violin and viola, for example. Like it's similar tonal range, but viola goes a little bit lower.
Yeah.
That's kind of why I moved to a 7-string mostly. I just liked how it felt as a guitar, but with 6-string on the album, I felt like it was kind of missing some of that. I don't know what word to describe it, but the bottom end kind of elephant farting from Curry, kind of kind of thing. And what I've done to get around that is I actually ran a bass through a guitar amp and put it on either side as well, and it's in Lavos at the ending.
Oh yeah.
So it gives it that sort of guitar frequency range of a 7 that was kind of missing, which was the timbre of it. And I've done that quite a lot on the album, where if it's a 6-string song, then if there's a part that's meant to be heavy, I've added the bass. And the good thing about that is Swanee can literally change patch on his helix and then run a left and right guitar on top of his normal bass sound.
Nice.
Which will be pretty cool.
Yeah, he's going to get some big moments on this next album, isn't he?
Yeah, maybe we just need to get him a Sun Model T. And we know someone.
we do, yeah. They need 200-watt Titan. Yes.
Yes.
Okay, it's very quickly time to do the news, and we're going to do one article because I can't keep you all night because you've got to get back to tracking guitar at some point very soon. And yeah. I didn't actually change this over because I'm a doofus. There we go. So our news article, one news article, is Cubase 12. They are finally throwing away the e-licenser dongle.
Do you know how many times I have left my Cubase dongle here when I've needed it in my laptop at home?
Yep.
It's so annoying.
Yeah. You know, the last time I accidentally left my iLock here instead of the studio? Yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, it still happens. I try my best not to do it, but yeah, it happens all the time. It's so annoying. But yeah,
I mean, the good thing about Steinberg is they do the lower ranges of Cubase without the dongle, which is great. And it's like, why in 2021, when security is done through mostly apps now, why haven't you changed it sooner?
That's it, isn't it? It's like, well,
I mean, I love Cubase. I've been using it ever since I started. It's really good for mainly MIDI and editing and stuff like that. But the MIDI side of it, you know, programming drums, the diamonds, it's amazing.
I have to say, there are things that Cubase can do there that even Reaper can't do. Like Malian was showing me that there's some things that you could do with time signatures now. There's throwing measures in there. And it would just like, he could make the craziest tempo map in about 3 seconds.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, you'll have to get him to show you about that.
Ross did something as well when we were in the studio. So he turned it to tape mode. And what that did is when he was recording, it would obviously bring the mics in so that Mike could listen on his in-ears.
Yeah.
Or he needed to listen to what Mike was doing. And the moment he pressed stop, it changed so that when he pressed play, he got what was in the DAW. I never knew that feature existed. I know it makes sense.
Yeah.
He remembered that feature from when he used to use Cubase, which was like, I think he said it was SX3, the last one he used.
Right.
And I had no idea the feature was there. And, you know, like, it's almost like direct monitoring, but you're not always monitoring. It was like, it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
But there is some great features in Cubase. And as I say, though, for me, it's mainly the MIDI. It by far surpasses anything else.
It is probably the best for that kind of thing, if that's exactly what you need it for. So Mr.
I'm very
Reaper Man
lazy.
says Cubase is good. Da, da, da.
But, I mean, Reaper has its moments. I mean, everyone, you know, takes a shit on it a lot.
Well,
but,
yes, they do.
I mean, it's pretty. I'll tell you what, it's stable.
It certainly is. And it doesn't take 3 weeks to open a project.
Well, actually, that's one problem I have, but that's not Cubase's fault. That's my fault.
It's half and half. I mean, you should have the right to have a 120 track project.
Oh, and 7 instances of Contact, 3 instances of Superior Drummer.
Oh, yes, nutcase. We did get rid of 2 of those Superiors, didn't we?
We did.
But your old template was a mess, my friend.
Dude, I've been using that template since 2015.
And just adding and adding and adding to it.
It's the same template I used for the Catsy album.
Yeah. That's
So it
probably
was
worth a
like,
quick mention, actually. That the way that you tend to write is you have a template that you open and just go, and that's
yeah,
really efficient.
I don't do different projects for different songs. I don't think, oh, this is a fresh start. I know for some people that makes sense because it declutters their life.
Yeah.
But the way that I find doing it in one project means that if there's a riff that I want to try changing tempo of or key, then it's right there. I don't have to open another project, copy the range, get it into the other project. That's just a waste of fucking time for me. Because the amount of time I spend opening projects, I'd rather just have everything in one, and then when it comes to recording the album, then siphon it off. Do you know what I mean? Into different projects for the.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, some people probably just record their final takes in the moment, which actually is something I've been thinking about recently, where certain parts never sound the same as when you
Yeah.
wrote them. But then that would involve changing strings every single time I write something, which I'm not going to do.
No. Plus, you do have quite a kind of a complicated rig in general, don't you? I mean, there's all the amps behind you, which now feed into a Zilla cab in a whole separate room with 3 mics on it. But there's also the Helix, and you're one of the very few people I know that always does 2 takes of a mic and amp cab and 2 takes with the Helix. What's that all about?
So mainly for options, like with George Lever's mixing this album, and he probably thinks I'm giving him far too many guitars. Well, I actually know that already. And the fact that there's 3 mics in the cab, it's definitely a lot of guitar signals. But the one thing that I have experimented more with on this album is actually using different amps for different sounds. So I actually, I know you didn't see it happen, but I used any VH100R on a part. I used the Hughes and Kettner Pure Tone on a few parts. The VHT is on a few parts.
Sig X, is that the one that you just...
Sig X, yeah. That's on a few parts. I used the Hughes and Kettner Here's on a few parts. The Mark IV, the Mesa Dual Rec, the rectifier in the rack here, the rack mount Recto preamps on a couple of parts. And I mean, I would love to experiment with that more, where, like, for example, there's one riff, in fact, the song I showed you yesterday that I just completed, and the high chords on that one bit, I really wanted it to be more spanky. So I ended up just recording those chords on a much less overdriven amp, so that it cut through with the notes a little bit more.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of why I give, not only quad tracks, but also little extra nuggets here and there, because it just gives options to the mixing engineer, whether they think, well, I think it sounds great. I mean, that's why I do it, but it's not me mixing it, and I don't want to mix it.
Oh, yeah. Well, especially with deadlines looming, because that's the other thing, is that with modern, big label album production, you've got to have things in place, haven't you? If you've got a release date at some point, you need to be well ahead of that curve because of what the industry is. You've got to have the thing ready.
And also just that I've, from writing it and recording it, because I'm recording the guitars to this album myself, which is obviously something that I don't recommend anyone ever does.
Yeah.
But it's more just about, I guess, budget more than anything. Just things cost money.
Well, the other thing, to be fair, is like I've come in and helped out a bit with getting the tones and the cab micing and everything, but you are so experienced with the DAW with Cubase and everything. I don't think it takes you that much more time. With a lot of guitarists, it really would take away from what they're doing.
But at the same time, I know that my focus isn't 100% in the instrument, because I'm thinking about, oh, I fucked that take. I've got to now press delete. I've got to press number 1 to go to the start of my loop. I've got to press the star key to start recording, the space bar to start playing before start recording, just so, and all those extra little things. I had to do the comping for the first 3 tracks of the album, and then I gave that away because it was taking too much fucking time.
Yeah.
And all these it's just time consuming when, as a guitar player, I should just be worrying about playing the part right, not worrying about all this other static that's happening from the DAW and everything else, like having you in and help with the mics and, getting tones and stuff like that was exceptionally helpful. Because if you think about it, to go into the other room and move a mic and then sit down, play again and repeat the process until you've got it exactly forever, right. It's time consuming.
Yeah.
And, not that it's not fun. That's like the best part about recording guitar, but it makes the process more, I guess, fragmented, and it just takes a shitload longer when it doesn't need to.
Yes. And this is why in big studios you get assistants.
And people to get coffee.
Yes. It costs a lot more money, but then the production time decreases.
It does. More people is more efficient. Just like one thing I would have loved is to have someone here just change strings for me. I cannot stand changing strings on my own guitars. I love doing it on other people's guitars, but on my own, don't like it. That's the weird one, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I suppose it feels a bit like a chore, doesn't it? When you feel like I could be tracking right now, or it's something that you. John Browne is sponsored by DR. By DR. Nearly managed to say DR strings then. Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, speaking of which, we should probably let you get back to tracking, because I've actually interrupted you in the middle of a session, haven't I?
You have. And we will talk about that off air.
Yeah.
No, I'm only joking. Thank you very much for having me on.
Anytime. Thanks for doing this, John. It's very much appreciated. And thanks everybody for tuning in.
Thanks for the amps too.
Yeah.
And the basses.
It's looking a little bit empty back here. In fact, actually, that Victory that's behind me, that's your one, isn't it? Because there was no space left on the shelves.
Yeah. And you wanted to do a video of it too.
Yeah, I need to get on that. Hopefully I'll do that on Monday.
That's a ramp, actually. Like, I probably would have ended up using that on the album.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a 5150 mix with a JCM 800 or 900 or something. It's like it's got the more forward British mid range, but the girth and fatness of the 5150.
Yeah,
it's a good amp. I do like it.
I should send it to George Lever and be like, right, now we've tracked everything, just reamp it all through this.
I think he would kill me.
He's so polite, but he'd just be politely sharpening his knife.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he's going to have very little time to mix the record. So big up to George for working so hard.
Yeah, he's a really nice guy and he's done a great job so far. So
yeah,
really
he's killing it.
Looking forward to what I think is going to be the best Monuments album so far.
It's funny, everyone always says that, don't they, when a new album comes out? It's our best work yet.
Yeah.
But I actually genuinely think that this might be the best one.
There's so much has gone into it. I mean, all the little things that are elevating it, like George Lever and Mick Gordon and all these extra things. It's going to be hard for it not to be the best. I mean,
yeah,
fans' opinions notwithstanding, because everybody's got an opinion, of course. But
everyone has an opinion. Whether it's right is another thing.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's weird. Like during the we can talk for a little bit longer. It's okay. In fact, actually, this is making me sane, believe it or not. But with the amanuensis, I got to the end of it and wanted to press delete, and that ended up being everyone's favorite album so far. Whereas I've had the same feeling on this one as well. But then Mick started adding his parts, and then obviously the final vocals are coming in from Andy, and I don't have to mix it, so it gets sent off, and I get a track back, and it's like, it sounds good, and it's quite nice to have that and not have to worry about those other elements,
Yes, absolutely.
So I actually do enjoy what's got into this record now. It actually sounds great to me.
Mm-hmm. I suppose that extra thing of mixing, I know that you're not the biggest, you don't enjoy mixing the way that I enjoy mixing. It's kind of
which way?
What's that?
Which is what way? What way do you enjoy mixing? You just like
it's one of my favorite things to do, full stop. Whereas
oh, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy mixing. I don't enjoy mixing my own things because it's the same reason why I don't like tracking my own guitar. And you saw me doing this yesterday.
Yeah.
Where you were like, you've got enough takes there. And I'm like, I think I can play it better. And it's the same with mixing when it's your own music, because I think you hear things that aren't necessarily there, like ghosts.
Yeah. Or you'll start getting really particular about a thing that literally nobody will care about.
No one will care about it. And that's, so that it's not that I don't enjoy mixing. I definitely do enjoy mixing, but when it's your own music, I think that it's best to have a different set of ears. Someone might have thought of something that you haven't. And I think the same goes with tracking as well. You know, with any, next album, I'll definitely be not record myself again. Like on Phronesis, I didn't record it either. It was done at Treehouse Studios with Jim Pinder, who's Carl Bones' assistant, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. So we recorded the guitars there last time and the bass.
And did that feel good to do that way?
Yeah, because I didn't have to worry about miking up an amp or doing a DAW or something like that. When someone else was tracking, I was playing flat out.
Yeah.
Remember that game?
Oh, yeah.
Flat out where you did the Olympics.
Yeah, I've seen some of the behind the scenes videos from that album as well. Is that the one where you ended up playing on the bass with forks or whatever it was, and everyone was wetting themselves laughing?
Yeah, there's a couple of moments on. I used a where is it? I mean, it's not totally exotic, but I used this at moments as well. This little thing.
Oh, a little valve. Yeah.
Yeah. So this broke in one of the amps. We both know which one broke. And I just I needed a sound that I heard in my head, and this actually came in handy, just like a slide, I guess. But this was cooler to use. I felt cooler using it because when I think of slide, I think of country or something like that. But it worked for the sound.
It's amazing what weird things do the job you're after, though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
You look around the studio and go, "I've got an idea. What'll do? Oh, that'll do." I'd end up doing slide with a battery for a camera because it's the first thing I can find that's the right shape.
It's amazing. You can just I saw Matthias Aya Eklund live, and he was playing on Mellow Boat, and it's the only time that Soul Niger Within by Frederick Thorndal has been played live. So I was at that show, and Matthias Eklund did a couple of songs after that set, and I remember he had one of those pop shove it game things. Do you know the one used to like hit it or twist it? Or
bop it.
Bop it. Yeah, that's what it's called. I couldn't remember. Getting old. But he had that in front of his pickups, and he was making noises with it, and it was like sick. And obviously the comb is a song that he did. The hair comb.
Oh yeah.
The string. Yeah. So he experiments with like weird household items as well, and I think that you can make some pretty cool noises. I would say that's probably inspired the knife and fork thing from the last album.
Well, it's funny what and also lightening the mood can be so necessary sometimes, because you end up like just recording in the dungeon, just in that loop, don't you? It's after a while.
It's good to stimulate the brain with something really stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even just hitting behind the nut or something, it's kind of cool just to make these cool noises sometimes that work.
Yeah. I think that most of my favorite bands of the last few years, I've discovered that they all have a good sense of humor, because you'll go mad if you don't.
Basically, yeah, or drink and drugs.
Yeah.
It's kind of why I think people just go crazy from probably being in the studio like me.
Yes.
I'm going crazy. Still got another 2 songs to track, but getting there.
On the bright side, only 2 songs left to track.
Only 2 songs left. Yeah. So I finished. In fact, actually, just before this, I just finished the one I was working on yesterday.
Right.
So I did all the leads and the cleans for that today. There wasn't that many cleans. I think maybe like 3 parts. Did it on the Pure Tone actually. Kind of
nice.
good. And then leads was just a bit awkward to place. That's why it took me all fucking day to do like 3 lead parts.
Oh man.
and yeah, now I'm gonna get started on the next 2. And yeah, I'm pretty excited for it to finally be finished so we can hear it from start to finish.
Yeah, it's not going to be long now, is it? Do we have any official announcements yet, or is that all to be confirmed?
Not allowed to say.
To be
you
confirmed.
Know how it is.
All right, yeah.
UBC.
I'm just asking if anything has been announced, but if not, it's not yet.
Well, the album will come out next year. That's what I can tell.
December 31st, 2022.
There is another single coming out pretty soon. You've already heard it.
Yes, it's good.
Yeah, it's a cool track. And yeah, we're just waiting for the video to be done for that. And there'll be a couple more singles before the album comes out. And we have a tour booked.
Ooh.
But that won't be announced for like a month or 2. Yeah, that's all I can give you, unfortunately, right now. The artwork for the album is almost complete. There's a title. There's an album title. You probably know it, actually.
Was it in what I saw yesterday?
Maybe, yeah. Actually, yeah, it probably was. Yeah, yes. You saw it. Yeah. Actually, yeah.
Yes, then yeah.
Okay, and then obviously all the songs have titles now. Some of them kept their working titles, some didn't. You know how it is.
Yeah, well, of course. Most bands don't keep any working titles. That's really interesting that you've kept a few.
Well, when the way that I kind of write music is, I kind of write to a word, a phrase, sometimes an idea, and if anything, it helps Andy with what to focus his lyrics on, because if you think about it, there's so many different topics that you could go towards, and obviously music could portray something in him that he could write lyrics about, which he did for a couple of the songs actually. Before I gave him what it was about, they ended up changing meaning, obviously, than the original concept, which is completely fine. You know, everyone has their different perspective, and I'm happy that Andy was able to put his own perspective on something. But you know, a lot of the time I'll just sit there and think about like, how could I explain this? And often or not, it'll end in like a cool, sometimes pretentious word from the Greek language, like doxa or something, because they had their shit together, like everything socially and stuff like that. They had a word to explain it for some reason, and I just seem to keep coming across them.
Well, whatever makes it work, I guess. That's something that I've always struggled with songwriting, is having that seed of an idea.
What, getting the original idea out?
Yeah, just finding that starting point of something to focus on to make it go in a direction.
That is always the hardest part. Like, if you have, like, once you get the initial idea down, it kind of falls into place. Sometimes it falls into place the same day or a couple of days after. Sometimes it takes months. But I think that if you have a goal that you're writing towards, like for me, the good thing about writing with words or like an idea is that, like, film music has given us certain scales and certain ways to explain certain emotions and situations, you know?
Yeah.
And that makes it a little bit easier to sort of know roughly where you're gonna go. I mean, if you know your scales and your modes, then you know that if you want something happy, then you probably want something in Lydian, or, you know, major. And if you want something that's like questioning something, it's probably going to be in diminished or something.
Yes, and we had a conversation yesterday about Mixolydian Flat 6, which is one that makes my eyes go funny.
Oh yeah, that one sounds great. There's actually a song on the album in Mixolydian Flat 6, and it's really, obviously it's called the Wonder Scale, and the main reason I started writing it because we had a brief for it on Riff Hard a couple of months ago, and it's a really peculiar sounding scale, from going from the 1 to the 4. That's kind of like the characteristic of that scale. It just sounds wondrous, and it's actually called the Wonder Scale, isn't it? So
Yeah.
it sounds sad, but like questionable sad. It's like questioning why at the same time. It's a really cool scale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, talking of Riff Hard, then that's probably a good place to end this on, because I've not even mentioned Riff Hard yet, much to my shame. A lot of our viewers probably do know what Riff Hard is, but for those that don't, would you be so kind as to give them a quick primer?
It is the place you should go if you want to actually improve at the guitar.
Yes.
Basically.
It's a guitar school that is not just focused around kind of stuff. It is
and that stuff's good though. That, like, people, there is use for that, getting up to a technical level where you can play what's ahead. I think that's really important, that you can play that stuff. And I am kicking myself right now because I was not. But this takes it from different perspectives. So obviously down picking and rhythmic precision is kind of my thing, which is all over the site. You can get better at that, better endurance. And obviously we've started having guest guitar players on. So we've got lessons from Dean Lamb from Archspire, Wes Hauk from Alluvial, and Dan Sugarman from Ice Nine Kills. And there's a bunch more coming up. They're all incredibly sick musicians teaching from their viewpoint. And I think that's really important, that you learn from different perspectives, because then you can make up your own sort of, I guess, not sound, but you can get the best of everything.
Yes.
Like, you don't just read one news article, do you? You try and get the information from multiple sources.
Yeah, because there are details in each one that you can take away. Yeah.
And you can make up your own damn mind. And I think that's the good thing about what Riff Hard is turning into, is the fact that you'll get different perspectives of playing from different players. And it's not just like exercises for you to go away and learn. Like, for example, Dan Sugarman's course is about actually interfacing with the instrument and thinking about the things that maybe a lot of us don't think about.
Yeah.
Such as, the distance your fingers are away from the fretboard. How hard should you press on the fretboard to get the perfect note while still having a good amount of where you're not pressing too hard and causing, problems in the wrist and, stuff like that. And it's really detailed, and it's really, really very good. And I tried a bunch of Dan's, techniques that he used, and I couldn't fault it. It was actually like, this is actually great. Like, I've never thought about this, and it's great.
And that's something that I've really noticed, is that you guys are all learning from each other, because you've got the Riff Hard podcast as well.
We do.
Where you've been interviewing some of the biggest names in guitar recently. You're absolutely smashing it. Who have we had on recently? John Petrucci's one that went out.
John Petrucci, John 5. We spoke to Mark Tremonti, but that's not out yet. That comes out in a couple of weeks. Who else have we spoken? We've spoken to, Gary Holt from Exodus and Slayer. A lot of really great guitar players. Yeah,
and more to come, of course, because once you've hit that level, now they're all going to want to talk to you. So
hopefully, I mean, more than anything, it's just great to hear the perspective of other people. Like with the Petrucci podcast, it was just the fact that he still wants to play for 6 hours a day, which, is amazing. So many years into him playing the instrument, that he still has that feeling.
Yeah,
I think it's inspiring.
He's nuts, but yeah.
Well, yeah, he even said that it's a mild form of OCD or something. If he doesn't play, he feels sad. But it's amazing after all these years that he still has that feeling that he wants to play guitar all the time. That is inspiring, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, he's directly inspiring, to use a cheesy term, the next generation, isn't he? And then...
I mean, he's inspired this generation.
That's what I mean. And then you guys, I suppose if you consider like you and Misha from Periphery as his next generation, then there's a next generation after us that's the teenagers now.
Yeah, and he's still inspiring.
Yeah, and that's really impressive to have such a lasting thing, because most guitarists Petrucci's age, a lot of them don't inspire the teenagers. I find now they inspire the guys who inspire the teenagers.
Yeah, and I think John like if you look at like Dream Theater's musical career, like for me, it was all about Scenes from a Memory. That one changed my life. That album literally changed my life. I still listen to it regularly. I bought a 7-string because of a change of seasons, you know, and you know, still releasing music, still releasing good music, and that's what's inspiring people.
Yes. So just to sign off, hopefully when the album 4 comes out, it's going to be good music and inspiring people. I
will see, or it's just the 50th time of the same song. Sorry, someone said that on my Instagram yesterday. I found it funny. It's probably true. But hey, Metallica are the biggest metal band in the world from playing F and E.
Yeah, Metallica, great song.
So I'm gonna follow their lead because it's great.
Why not? All right, I'm gonna let you go. But John, thanks again for coming on, mate. And thank you everybody for watching. Now go home.
Cheers.
It's been Hot Pole Podcast, and we'll see you not next week because me and John are going to be away doing a big project, which we can't talk about. But because of that, I'm not going to be here. And then I'll be back the week after. So 2 weeks from now, I'll see you all. Thank you, everybody, and we'll see you very soon. Goodbye. Hey, everyone. That might be the end of the video, but if you fancy carrying on this conversation, we have a Discord server. Link is in the description. We're also on Patreon, which is something you can really help us with. We also are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Hot Pole Studio.